You're listening to the Chapter a Day Bible Study. I'm John Stange, and today we're in Genesis 49. Jacob blesses his sons. Genesis 49 brings us to the final words of Jacob. He's old, his sons are gathered around his bed, and he speaks over them one by one. These aren't polite compliments or vague hopes. The words he speaks are prophetic words that reveal character, consequences, and calling. And as this chapter unfolds, we see sin remembered, grace displayed, and God's long plan for redemption moving forward. When we read it carefully, it points us clearly toward Jesus. Jacob begins by telling his sons why he's speaking. He says in verse 1, "Gather yourselves together that I may tell you what shall happen to you in days to come." These blessings and pronouncements aren't limited to the next few years. They look ahead through generations. God is shaping a nation, and he's doing it through deeply flawed people. The early words are hard to hear. Reuben, the firstborn, should have received honor and leadership. Instead, in verse 4, Jacob says, "Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence." Reuben's past sin disqualified him from what his position promised. Simeon and Levi are addressed together because of their violence at Shechem. Jacob doesn't excuse their anger, he condemns it. Sin has consequences, even when God remains faithful to his covenant. The words spoken to Judah changed the tone of the chapter. This is where hope rises to the surface, because Jacob says in verse 8, "Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you." Judah wasn't a perfect man. He had his own moral failures, yet God chose his line for leadership. Then comes one of the most important promises in the book of Genesis. In verse 10, Jacob says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples." This is a royal promise. A king is coming from Judah's line. Authority will rest with him. Obedience will be given to him, not just from Israel, but from the peoples. This points us straight to Jesus. He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He is the promised king whose rule never ends. Long before Bethlehem, long before David's throne, God was already declaring that true kingship would come through Judah. Jesus didn't seize this authority, it was given to him by the Father, just as promised here. Jacob continues with imagery of abundance and strength. The picture is of prosperity and stability under this coming ruler. The blessings aren't thin or fragile, they're full and overflowing. In Christ, this finds its fulfillment in a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Joseph receives the longest blessing from Jacob, and it's filled with beauty and resilience. In verse 22, Jacob says, "Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall." Joseph's life had been marked by betrayal, suffering, and injustice, yet God made him fruitful anyway. Jacob acknowledges the opposition Joseph faced, but credits God for sustaining him. He says, "By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you." We see that in verses 24 and 25. Joseph's story has always pointed us toward Jesus. Both were rejected by their own. Both suffered unjustly. Both were exalted by God and became a source of salvation for many. Joseph provided bread for starving nations, and Jesus offers the bread of life to a hungry world. Not every word in Genesis 49 feels encouraging on the surface, but every word serves God's redemptive purpose. Dan's future includes deception. Issachar is described as strong but burdened. Benjamin is compared to a ravenous wolf. God isn't pretending his people are better than they are. He's showing us that he works through real lives with real weaknesses. The chapter closes with Jacob's final instructions and then his death. He blesses his sons, then entrusts his body to the promises of God by asking to be buried with his fathers in Canaan. Even in death, his faith looks forward. Genesis 49 reminds us that God's plan doesn't depend on human perfection. It depends on his promise. The line moves forward, the king is coming, and nothing derails what God has spoken. Jesus stands at the center of this chapter, even if his name isn't mentioned. He's the promised ruler from Judah. He's the faithful son who succeeds where others failed. Jesus is the blessing promised to the nations. When we read Jacob's final words, we're reminded that our stories are part of something much bigger. God is still keeping his promises, and the king they were waiting for has already come. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Chapter a Day Bible Study. For more resources to help you in your walk with Christ and your understanding of the Bible, please visit my website at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com. And if you'd like to partner with me by becoming a supporter of this ministry, you'll see a few options to do so, again, at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com or in the description of this episode. As always, thank you for your prayers, thank you for your support, and thank you for your willingness to share this content with others. Have a great day, and I'll see you again right here tomorrow.